It's a little embarrassing telling this story, but I had discovered as a 13-year-old kid how to masturbate in the tub one day. Thought it was the greatest thing. Had no clue. Was so excited. I was like, oh, I should tell my friends. I was so innocent, I didn't have a clue. I remember shortly after learning from my bishop how wrong they said masturbation was and everything. You're just this innocent child, and the next thing you know, they're teaching you that if you look at something and you have a feeling, that's the same as committing adultery, and committing adultery is the next sin to murder. I started to feel like that I had committed the sin next to murder, and I felt like it was all my fault.
This is a story about fractured faith. Mormon families in southern Utah are flocking to a high-profile therapist.
People don't understand that they could actually heal their pain.
She made it look like only the best of the best got to have her therapy.
With an unconventional approach to healing.
There wasn't any aspect of the human condition that she couldn't pathologize and turn it into an addiction.
Someone could be addicted to having sex with a lamppost.
Like, what the heck is going on here?
When a high-profile vlogger enters the picture.
How do you mother 6 children? Well, Ruby Franke will show you how.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm gonna cut its head off.
An unexpected alliance takes shape.
There was financial attraction, there was emotional attraction. She was sleeping literally in the same bed as her client.
And a call to 911.
This boy he's been detained.
Unravels their bizarre beliefs.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil.
What the heck is going on in the LDS faith?
Everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a horror movie.
I don't tell people this much. Bella's actually my service animal. She's trained, so if I ever have PTSD, she comes and just like hits me with her nose. She's so good at it. She reads your eyes if they like dilate. My name is Adam Paul Steed. I was raised in the heart of the Mormon Church. I was taught to pray every single day that I would get married in the temple and then I would go on a mission.
My name's Paul Steed. This is my 1946 Willys Jeep. I had one of these in high school, and for 40 years I've tried to get another one. And Adam found this one, called me up, and he said, "Dad, I found your Jeep. All my kids, I want them to get baptized, and I want them to be Boy Scouts, and then I want them to go on missions." Everybody wants to say, what was the one reason why you left the Mormon Church? But people like us don't leave for one reason.
I had a good childhood. I just had people that tried to repaint it. There's this camp called Camp Little Lemhi. It's kind of the Idaho-Wyoming border area. And I hate that place. Like now, it's just everything good about it's gone. It's a terrible place for me.
The Boy Scouts of America is inextricably woven into the Mormon male experience. As early as 1913, the LDS Church outsourced its boys and young men's program to the Boy Scouts of America until 2020. When Adam was growing up, to be a Mormon boy was to be a Boy Scout. But for Adam, the Scouts would have a major impact on his life, and not in a good way.
I came home from camp after getting sexually molested multiple times by a serial sexual predator. He was the second in charge of Camp Little Lemhi. I was like 14 and he was like 25 or 24.
At first, Adam hides his abuse, but when he learns that this is happening to other scouts, he does what he should have done. He brings it to the attention of the adults in charge of the camp, and nobody did anything. And so Adam took it upon himself to call the police, and his Boy Scout leader did get arrested. But after years of lingering frustration with the Boy Scouts hierarchy and the reporting process, Adam takes it one step further.
When I was 23, I decided to sue Boy Scouts of America, and eventually we had a settlement. I'm at BYU. I met this girl. She was cute and she had this cool voice, and she always presented herself very, very, very well. We fell in love, and suddenly she was just like, I feel like you're the right person to marry. I wanted to marry her. I just felt like nobody would give me a clean slate and look at me like a normal person.
The thing about his wife is that Adam is embarrassing to her and her family. They're high up in the church. And back then, if you attacked the Boy Scouts of America, it was like attacking the Mormon church. They were concerned about the optics of this new union.
It was generated that my wife and I needed to go to therapy with the scouting settlement money. It would be immoral if we didn't take therapy, because then it's like we're stealing money that should be for that. So the bishop calls us in and tells us, I want you to go to a very special counselor. Her name's Jody Hildebrandt.
I am sure you're here because you have a desire to heal, a desire to have joy in your life and connection in your relationships.
Jody Hildebrandt is a superstar therapist in the Mormon community in southern Utah. Her organization, Connections, comes highly recommended by the hierarchy of the Latter-day Saints Church. It seems like a good match, but Jody's approach to therapy would have an unexpected impact on Adam's life.
My name is Lauren Matthias, and I am the co-host of the Hidden True Crime podcast. I've reported all throughout Idaho and Utah, and I can tell you that the secrecy and what is hidden in southern Utah blew my mind. Jody Hildebrandt was born to a very large LDS family. Her childhood was tough living. Put your shoulder to the wheel and make it your own way. You're a Hildebrandt.
I remember as a teenager and young adult feeling so overwhelmed with pain.
Her father was a colonel in the Air Force. Her mother was very distant. According to her, she was sexually abused by relatives on multiple occasions.
At the same time, she becomes a beauty queen. She's performing and she's singing and she has this beautiful voice. And so, I don't know, sort of some contradictions that I'm seeing.
She got married, had a couple kids, and about the same time her marriage explodes, she goes to graduate school at the University of Utah to study educational psychology.
I encountered Jody Hildebrandt at several trainings. She was working as a social worker. Jody was very attention-seeking, a little bit of challenging the presenter, which kind of sends the message that the real expert would be Jody.
She went to work for LDS Family Services, which was the Mormon Church's official therapist group.
LDS Family Services is supposed to be a safe list. So somebody goes to their bishop and says, I need a referral. They're supposed to suggest a therapist that is officially on this list.
She made tons of jokes. She pointed out funny things about the way guys see the world and women see the world and had everybody laughing. And she made it look and feel like only the best of the best got to have her therapy.
In the Book of Mormon, it's taught that sexual transgression is next to murder in severity. Masturbating and looking at porn is probably one of the most serious and even spiritually deadly things you can do. That's the context that many of these Mormon therapists arise from. And so Jody Hildebrandt definitely comes out of that mold. A network of Mormon therapists committed to, curing the world of masturbating, men.
These are all been packaged with vacuum bags. So this is calories for 5 people for 2 years, roughly. Food storage is something that people do in the LDS religion. I don't go to church anymore, but I still have the food storage, and I still believe in it. My name is Daniel Choate. I've lived in Utah my whole life. I was married for 15 years. I have 5 kids between the ages of 17 and 7. You know, to put it bluntly, as is common with the male kind, I would look at some porn occasionally. You know, and I was very honest with my wife about it, and it really began to bother her a lot. She said there's no difference between that and having an actual affair. I did not feel like that. I thought that I could go to Jody to help us navigate this road that we're both trying to go down together. She put us right into her groups, and there was a men's group and a women's group. We had a Zoom meeting once a week on a Saturday, and Jody would head that meeting. Really, everybody was there for the same thing. It was all porn.
It was all about me having a sex addiction. I couldn't figure it out because I hadn't masturbated or looked at pornography. Didn't do any of this stuff.
She conceptualized all of her clients as addicts. If you masturbate, you're a sex addict. But if you have a bad temper, you're addicted to drama. There wasn't any aspect of the human condition that she couldn't pathologize.
She said that if you did something one time a year, the fact that you couldn't not do it one time a year meant you were an addict. She even joked around and laughed about how someone could be addicted to having sex with a lamppost.
People would describe themselves as addicts. I masturbated once last month. I'm 28 days sober.
One of her core beliefs is that we're born with an addiction mindset. If we're all sinners, then the solution is to find what she calls truth. So the goal is moral perfection. The way you find moral perfection is through Jody Hildebrandt and her system.
You would then go to these accountability groups. They were often run over Zoom, and people would report to these groups like Alcoholics Anonymous.
We had to make 7 phone calls per week to other men that were in the men's group. You would call somebody, they would tell you about what's going on in their life, and you would do the same. And we were encouraged to share, you know, as openly as possible.
So it would be like, hey, Jim, thanks for being my accountability buddy. I didn't masturbate this morning. And Jim would be like, oh, great, good job, keep it going. But then on the 5th day, if you did masturbate, your job was to say, hey, Jim, I slipped up. And then in the next group, if you didn't report your slip up, Jim would make sure you did. Jody would have the group serve as a form of punishment for falling off the wagon.
One day I come home and there's a note on the bedroom door. It's like a full page of rules and things that my wife has made for me. I'm only allowed in our bedroom under her rules. And she had times that I could enter in the morning and times that I could enter in the evening. If I didn't abide by these rules, she let me know that she was going to take the kids and leave.
So why are these women going along with this? I'll tell you what I think. Jody is giving them control. She is rejecting 200 years of the church's patriarchal history. She's empowering these women to examine their marriages and make demands. She's embracing these women's feelings, and she's controlling the weakest part of the men's psyche.
After about a week of appeasing her, I rebelled, and I went to sleep in the bed one night. So she said, hey, you have to get out of the house, or I'm leaving. I reasoned with her, okay, I'll go to the guest house, and she accepted that at the time.
Why would you split a couple that you wanted to help? Because you're getting information from them and you're using it against each other. They have no idea what the other one was saying. They're just trusting Jody.
I would say the majority of men were like fairly under Jody's spell, that they were evil and they needed to change and fix everything. I remember making phone calls with guys from the guest house and coming to understand that almost everybody's separated. What the heck is going on here?
Look, here was a little note from my ex. I love you. I'll stop focusing on myself so much. It doesn't represent how I truly feel about you. I love you, I love you, I love you. This was our life before Jody Hildebrandt. My wife wanted Jody's approval. of everything she did. She lost ability to know for herself if something was right. What Jody wanted was like a drug for her.
These are emails between Jody and Adam's ex-wife. Dear Jody, our conversation this morning reminded me of the scripture when Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice." I wanted to express my gratitude to you for being his voice in my life. In other words, Jody represents God.
When I read the emails between Jody and my ex now, it sounded like they were talking about like a sexual arousal kind of experience. My ex starts talking to Jody about feeling blood in her, like in her cheeks, and this euphoric feeling, and it feels so good. My wife asked me to bathe our daughter, and this was at a point where Jody had taken away from us the ability to kiss, the ability to be physical, the ability to have sex, the ability to talk to each other. And she was very disciplined on this. You could imagine my shock. I'm in the bathtub with our little baby, and my wife walks into the bathroom in lingerie and acted really sexy, and it started to give me an erection, so I was laughing with her, and I asked her to take the baby out of the tub. So she took the baby out, presumably to come back and hop in the bath to have sex with me, and I was thinking that she was like becoming her old funny self again. Then she just looked at my private parts, disgusted, and just walked off. I always thought that I must have said something wrong that spooked her. You know, I didn't put it together. I didn't realize what happened.
There's so much deception going on that the law, quote unquote, they don't know where the truth is. This little boy that you have depends on you, Mom. And I'm hoping that you will be a lioness to protect him.
Adam's wife files for divorce, which is probably no surprise to Adam. But what is a huge surprise is that it is soon followed by an order of protection. And Adam is wondering, what has he done that caused his wife to believe she needs the law to help protect her from him?
She took the kids and disappeared, and I had no clue where they were. When the protective order came out, she said, "My husband is a victim of sexual abuse, and so he doesn't understand healthy boundaries." He had to call me to get the baby out of the tub because he was having an erection. My biggest fear as a victim of sexual abuse was to be accused of being a sexual abuser. I had horrible trauma when I was a kid. And suddenly I'm being accused of stuff that makes it look like I should be in prison. I would put a bullet to my head before I'd touch a kid.
In the final divorce settlement, Adam lost custody of his children. He was granted 10 days of visitation a month. Now, upon reflection, Adam believes that the entire bathroom incident was a trap orchestrated by his ex-wife and Jody Hildebrandt to make him look like an unfit father. And Adam is not the only victim.
We're introduced to Jody in 2018. We got divorced in 2020. I thought, you know what would be excellent is if we can get a divorce, have a good co-parenting relationship, and maybe even be friends. Well, my ex-wife texted my sister-in-law. She claimed that I had done something like rape to her, which, as far as I'm concerned, that's an allegation of rape. She claimed that I had cheated on her in the marriage, which was not true. She also claimed that I had made some kind of sexual comments about our daughter. I would never hurt my daughter.
So what's going on here? If her aim is to free the women from the confines of a traditional marriage, then that puts her outside the bounds of Mormon teachings. While she may be challenging the teachings of the church, there seems to be something else that is driving the actions of Jody Hildebrandt.
Money is not a bad thing at all. It's a wonderful thing. And if you are able to make money and you do it in truth, God bless you.
Jody capitalized on Mormon sexual shame to the tune of millions of dollars. How many therapists do you know who live in $3 to $5 million homes, especially in Utah? It's unheard of. Jody's sales pitch is, I'm the one who's figured out how to cure the porn and masturbation problem. Start with individual therapy sessions with me. Soon she'll upsell to it being couples therapy. And then soon she'll upsell her support groups. If you can help 8 or 10 or 20 people at one time, you're going to make a lot more money than if you're meeting people individually.
She's making money by selling workbooks and homework materials. She probably made money from merchandise. I know everyone seems to have a Connections t-shirt or hat.
Jody would pressure parents to go to the grandparents and have them liquidate their 401ks because you'd say, listen, you can have your spouse or your kids committing this next to murder, or you can cough up 5 or 10 or 20 grand to save their children or their grandchildren from eternal damnation.
And she knew we had just got a settlement from scouting, and she was just raking in that money. She was saying, you have to take more sessions with me. Instead of twice a week, it has to be 4 times a week. We were paying 2.5 times more for Jody than we were paying for all of our living expenses.
Let's just call it what it is. It's a faith-based, multi-level marketing scheme run by a controlling and charismatic figure.
Get in the classroom, start meeting other people that are part of the Connections family, start talking to them on the phone, talking to them on social media, and get the help that you need.
And for organizations like this to thrive, they need to find new members and keep growing.
So you're all like, what? I have your attention now? Is that it? You're all gonna listen?
Ruby Franke was this powerful mom influencer and had millions and millions of followers on YouTube.
Let me tell you about Ruby Franke. Ruby was raised a devout Mormon in Utah. She was a high achiever who strove to be the ideal Mormon mother. Ruby met her husband, Kevin, when she was just 18. They were engaged within weeks. She had her first child at 21 and then went on to have 5 more.
She started a Mormon Mommy YouTube channel where she would share with the world her adventures as a parent. It's named 8 Passengers because it's her and her husband, Kevin, and then their 6 children. In Mormon culture, women are often secondary, and there are many, many Mormon housewives that feel underappreciated, and it was a way for her to be the perfect Mormon mom.
8 Passengers followed their entire family on daily vlogs. How do you mother 6 children? Well, Ruby Franke will show you how.
One of the most concerning things that I see with this growing trend of family vloggers is that, like reality TV, you need drama to attract viewers. And more often than not, that drama will include the children.
If you cut one more thing in my house, we're chopping its head off. I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
She started focusing on disciplining her children in more and more extreme ways. One of the things Ruby was criticized for was for kicking her son Chad out of his own bedroom and forcing him to sleep on a beanbag.
That was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
You see a trend of a child getting hurt or discipline that is actually quite shocking.
Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
The Mormon community in southern Utah is pretty tight-knit. So it's not surprising that in 2018, the paths of these 2 powerful women cross.
Jody Hildebrandt's eyes, it was like a cartoon, and the stars in her eyes probably just lit up the moment she learned Ruby Franke might be attending her sessions. I certainly think that she targeted her.
Phone call yesterday with my therapist, and she taught me about truth and distortion. Mom probably talks about Jody all the time.
I've mentioned Jody a few times. She has a podcast called Connections with an X.
Ruby and Jody met because Ruby and Kevin were actually seeking therapy for their oldest son. Jody Hildebrandt was recommended.
As soon as Jody Hildebrandt discovers that she's working with a family that has 2 million subscribers, I am sure she sees dollar signs and she sees opportunity.
It seemed to transition to Ruby getting therapy.
Jody always had a larger interest in communicating with the parents more than with the actual patient. Her theory was, if you want to help your child, you have to help yourself first.
At first, Kevin was part of this therapy, like, let's do couples therapy. And then all of a sudden, it seemed to transition to Ruby becoming kind of a mini Jody, the Robin to Jody's Batman.
We've seen this dynamic before, where Jody causes and then exploits friction in a marriage and then forges a bond with the wife. But in the case of Ruby Franke, the dynamic is different, because Jody Hildebrandt is now dealing with someone whose star power is much bigger than her own.
Ruby Franke emerges back online, no longer with her husband, but with Jody Hildebrandt, her therapist, with a channel called Moms of Truth.
You will no longer be manipulated or deceived by yourself or by others. Right.
Ruby becomes then not just a patient of Jody's, but a mental fitness trainer under Jody. And it's absolutely bizarre.
You're gonna go, oh yeah, I do that. Or you're gonna say, oh, my spouse does that.
That's what you're gonna say.
So in 2021, Jody actually moves in with Ruby and Kevin Franke.
The moment she showed up at my house, just the weirdest crap started happening. Lights turning on and off, like sounds like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling, and like.
Jody starts saying some shadowy figures are visiting her at night or after her. Jody then starts asking Kevin Franke to help her perform exorcisms.
It was weird, and I hated it. And I don't have any way to explain it other than there's some crazy going on.
It's hard to make sense of these seemingly supernatural occurrences. Does Jody truly believe she's being pursued by demons? Or is this another performance where she's manipulating her environment to get the attention that she craves?
Ruby would go up and check on her. It started like every 4 hours at night, and it moved every hour at night. And then at some point, Ruby said, you know what, I'm just going to start sleeping in there. That's kind of weird, but okay. And that was that. They started sleeping in the same bed.
Sorry, I was just enjoying that.
And Jody, take over. She's mesmerized by what I'm saying.
There was financial attraction, there was emotional attraction, there was psychological attraction. She was sleeping literally in the same bed as her client. Was Jody literally fighting with her own demons and preaching against sexual misconduct and yet being constantly tormented as a closeted lesbian? Now, I'm speculating there, but all those dots seem to line up.
Now, look, whether they're in a sexual relationship or not, what is clear is that these two powerful women are feeding off each other's energy. Eventually, Ruby and her younger children leave their family home and move in with Jody.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he said he had just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid. He has duct tape around each ankle. And he has them around his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... He's been detained. What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke. Ruby Franke is his mom's name. He says what's happened to him is his fault.
They're coming to you as quick as they can, okay?
Okay. Jody Hildebrandt is up there right now.
Okay.
She's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
When I arrived at the residence where the young boy was located, I noticed how bad this boy was emaciated. His skin was coming off. I was tearing up. It hurt to see a young boy with wounds like that done to him. Like he was looking at me like he was in trouble.
How did you get the ropes on you? Who did them?
He told me that his mother and Jody Hildebrandt did this to him. I just couldn't imagine what he could have done for this to happen to him.
Police officers, open up! Jody, I need you to step out.
I have my attorney.
That's great. Step out of the house.
No, I'm not going to step out of the
Step
house.
out of the house.
Step out of the house.
Whoa.
We're just gonna see if anybody else. Is there anybody else home?
Wait a minute, how do you come to my house?
Right there.
At the home, I let Jody know that she was being detained, and I didn't have any real communication with her until we arrived at the police department and I conducted an interview. If we ask you any questions that you don't want to answer, you can just tell us, I don't want to answer that question.
So I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything. And I said, I have nothing to hide. And he's like, I know that. I don't know what's going to happen with what I say. You know? I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. If you knew all the pieces, I think you'd have a lot of empathy for what's going on.
I was in bed at 4 a.m. I just woke up randomly. I checked the news. I read about Ruby Franke and the child abuse and the family blogger and a therapist. And then when I saw it was Jody, I almost fell out of bed. I had avoided talking about this whole part of my life like the plague. My story's always been here. We've always had the evidence. Nobody's had the energy to find the truth.
What would you say to Jody?
Burn in hell.
We're just here to talk to you about kind of a few things involving your kids. So first, do you live down here or? I was just trying to build a rapport, get to know her. And she just stared and was giving these long blinks like she was in a trance. It was very different, odd, not normal behavior. Would you feel more comfortable talking to one of us?
Maybe you want me to step out if you want.
Or if you feel more comfortable talking to him, I can step out.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer.
That's where the interview ended. Kevin Franke arrived at the Santa Clara Evans Police Department looking for his children.
A 12 to 13-year-old boy was knocking on doors in a neighborhood asking for food and water, that he was severely emaciated, that he had...
What is emaciated?
Skinny, scrawny, malnutritioned, not enough food, not enough water to sustain life. So he had...
I'm sorry, what?
He didn't have knowledge of the state that they were currently in. He had not seen his kids in over a year.
I've been in a separation.
From who?
From my wife and family because of my own addictions with pornography. Jody saw the need for me to get help. Frankly, I agree. This space has been exactly what I need.
I feel bad for Kevin. He's not going to talk like this in 5 years from now. He's just fresh in it, fresh in the cult.
Everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a made-up story. It sounds like a horror movie.
We conducted the search of the over 9,000 square foot home. At that time, we didn't know the extent of the child abuse, but then once we searched the home, we found journals written by Ruby Franke.
So this Ruby's diary, July 11, 2023, long before she's arrested. Big day for evil. R, or I should say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get his attention, R doesn't even flinch. He's in a trance and doesn't appear to feel anything.
The children were told that they were disobedient and they had to withstand different punishments, running hills in the middle of the desert, fasting for 3 days, no food, no water. All these things were part of the repentance process, which was supposed to get the devil outside of them.
This is good evidence. She knows her kids are being abused. And she thinks that the kids are like demons, or they don't know how much God loves them. That's love? This is crazy.
This is a free call from Ruby. Thank you. An inmate at Purgatory Correctional Facility.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. The most upsetting thing is that I am completely misunderstood. Like, my own family misunderstands me, they misinterpret me. And poor Jody, she puts her neck out on the line for people and then they get mad at her. I mean, it is just horrendous.
I cannot even wrap my head around what Ruby is saying. She has been arrested, she knows the condition of her abused children, and she is still defending Jody? This is a massive transformation from mommy vlogger to starry-eyed cult follower. So what really happened here?
We didn't do that. We didn't do that. Those pictures we did not do. He did that to himself, yes. If we put that on him and then he rubbed around and cut himself, yes. But we didn't do that. I'm a good woman. I don't do naughty things. I'm a really good girl.
This has been the strangest and the most miraculous intervention. It put everybody where they needed to be. It separated me from Jody, so I'm not hearing her. And I think just not hearing her has cleared a lot of things up for me.
Now look, perhaps it was the gravity of the charges and the potential sentence she faced, but after months in jail, Ruby Franke had the presence of mind to step back and see through the fog of her twisted alliance with Jody Hildebrandt.
I think Ruby really wanted to be loved in a way that she had not experienced before. I think Jody sensed that, and Jody played on it. There were a couple pages in the journal where she talked about possession. It really showed me the extent to which Ruby was all in with Jody's beliefs.
Well, how come you get to say where the boundaries are? And I always say back to people, I don't say where the boundaries are. They're God's rules.
It was always about distortion versus truth. But really, when it comes down to it, truth is anything Jody says. So, in other words, a cult leader.
Like all cult leaders, whether it's L. Ron Hubbard or Keith Raniere or Jody Hildebrandt, they always mix in sort of pop psychology, New Age doctrine or theology with some of their own particular practices.
When I hear that she thinks God is speaking to her, I think, what a narcissist. My next thought was, what the heck is going on in the LDS faith with all these extreme beliefs? I'm covering the Chad and Lori Daybell case, and the exact same thing is happening.
Chad and Lori Daybell are a couple that led a doomsday cult based on fringe LDS beliefs. Now, they believe that Lori's two children were possessed by demons, and they had them killed. The Daybells isolated themselves from anyone who challenged them. Ruby and Jody seem to be doing the same thing. Weeks before they were arrested, they were shopping for remote ranch land in Arizona.
I firmly believe that those kids would have met a tragic end if Jody had been allowed to take them to Arizona. Mormonism at its best is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So somebody that comes along and distorts Mormon doctrine and theology and then monetizes it, and then in doing so, when they're supposed to be a healer, they're predatory and destroying lives and families. It's an evil, corrupt grift. And Jody Hildebrandt was one of the worst grifters Utah's ever seen.
This is a call from
Jody Hildebrandt. The Lord says, "And ye shall be betrayed by brethren and kinsfolk and friends. Children shall rise up against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death." That statement right there is what's going on with me.
It's hard to know if Jody's religious thinking changed, but in the court setting, she did change. Ruby and Jody each pled guilty, and the plea deal was to drop 2 of the 6 aggravated child abuse charges. They're each going to do at least 4 years, because that's the minimum sentence they were given. Jody's brand of perverted Mormonism was a dangerous mix. This greed-fueled exploitation of religious doctrine, this deep-seated drive to punish men and children, and this promise of spiritual salvation. It is hard to fathom the damage she has done.
She took away 15 years of our life. We're just one little story in her massive wake of destruction.
How's Adam today?
Adam's good. Ever since he came home from scout camp in '97, his life has been in turmoil. And he gets up every day, and bless his heart, he's one of the most optimistic people I know.
I've had my life turned upside down and turned back over in an extraordinary way. A couple of years ago, this beautiful woman came into my life. We had a baby a few months after we got married. I always wanted to have a baby out of wedlock, but I missed it by just a few months. I just love her, and I got this gorgeous second chance at life.
If Jody Hildebrand were to see this, what would you say to her?
I'd probably say, you gone done up, Jody. You know, may God have mercy on your soul when you finally take responsibility for what you've done.
How deep has the covenant cut in your heart?
She convinces people to do whatever she wants because she's the prophet.
And she said, if we save these cats today, we will be saved in the day of the apocalypse.
Desperate people do desperate things.
An all-new 2020 starts right now.
A chaotic scene. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife, Carrie, unresponsive in their bedroom.
I put my head to her chest and no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
An EMT told me that my daughter was dead.
There was a piece of paper on the end table and something didn't set right. Your wife took her own life, and it's pretty obvious.
I just kept saying there's no way.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done.
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
Your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
I would go, good morning, angels.
Charlie's Angels of Waco. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
Things aren't adding up. I have to know the truth. What are you talking about? Murder?
EMS, what's your emergency?
My wife is laying in the bed. Her lips are blue, hands are cold.
It was just before midnight here in the small town of Hewitt, Texas, on the outskirts of Waco. Beloved minister Matt Baker comes home to find his wife unresponsive in their bedroom. Their two young daughters asleep in their beds. Matt calls 911.
Are you in there with her right now? Is she conscious?
No,
she's breathing. Did you see what happened to her?
No, I do not know.
The ambulance is on the way, okay? Are you right beside her right now?
Yes.
Matt had been beside his wife Carrie since they met at a Baptist summer camp and fell in love.
I was the assistant director and she was one of the camp counselors. And from day one, we kind of hit it off.
Carrie fell head over heels. She told the family that she'd met a good Christian boy and she'd fallen in love. Her faith was the core of who she was. And so it was very important to her that she found someone whose faith was aligned with hers. Matt grew up in Kerrville. He too came from a very religious family. Carrie, she was always the bubbly little blonde and just loved life. People were drawn to Carrie.
She was so funny. And when Carrie laughed, she laughed with her whole body. Everyone in the room just could feel her because she was just so free-spirited.
I don't think there was ever a question Carrie was right or not right for me. It was we moved fast. We met in May and married in August.
We tried to talk Carrie into waiting a little longer, and she really did not want to. Carrie was looking for a husband with morals and values that were similar to what she had, and Matt, she believed, had those.
That you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you.
She was marrying a Baptist minister. How good is that? You couldn't pick a better guy than Matt Baker.
Can you say Merry Christmas? No, here, take a pacifier out. Say Christmas. Can you give a kiss?
The kids came quickly.
Oh.
They looked like this perfect young couple with this beautiful baby. Carrie wanted children. She always had, and she was a wonderful mother.
She's still so pink.
And then Cassidy came. It looked to the outside world like everything was just coming together for the Bakers.
If you know our children or not, this is my wife, Carrie, and it's special for me to do this because they are my children, our children.
Cassidy, hi.
But it was just after Cassidy's first birthday when the family was dealt some heartbreaking news about her.
And it turned out that she had a brain tumor. Carrie was devastated, absolutely devastated. We went to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth.
It was a scary time, and she struggled in pediatric ICU for 60 days. They started chemotherapy on her.
They didn't know if she would make it through, but she did.
We get to bring her home. That was one of the happiest days.
She needed a lot of care when she came home, but she was expected to recover.
The Academy Awards were playing that night, and I remember staying up watching that. I went in and checked on Cassidy, and she was fine. I gave her a kiss and said a prayer, checked on their older sister, kissed her, said a prayer, and went to bed.
A little while later, he got back up and went and checked on her a second time. This time he started screaming. Carrie jumped up, ran into the room, found Cassidy, and she wasn't breathing at all.
I yell at my wife as I'm taking her out of the bed, and I put her on the floor and I begin CPR. She calls 911.
They brought Cassidy to the hospital, but they weren't able to save her. Cassidy died.
I know we dealt with it differently. We would have discussions about it and pray about it. And it was a struggle.
Carrie bled grief after Cassidy died.
And she was having a difficult time sleeping.
Carrie had been taking over-the-counter sleep aid since Cassidy died.
She could not calm down at night without sleeping pills.
She started writing journals, and she just poured out incredible sorrow. She thought she saw Cassidy wherever she went. It was horrible. What helped Carrie, in addition to her faith and her family, was she saw a grief counselor for a year. She talked and talked things through. The death of a child always puts a terrible strain on a marriage. Carrie really fought to keep that marriage together. She loved Matt. She wanted it to work out. I just told Carrie that men and women often grieve in different ways.
In time, the Bakers and their daughter tried to move ahead with their lives.
It was a year and a half after Cassidy's death. Carrie found out that she was pregnant. Carrie said that the baby was coming by the grace of God.
There was definitely a fear in my wife that I had not seen before. A fear of what if. I lost one, what if we lose another one? I can't handle that.
She loved her girls, and she was so strong for them. Cassidy's life was cut short, but she had them.
The four of them looked like this perfect little family. You would think, oh, look, they just have it all.
EMS, what's your emergency?
Almost exactly 7 years after the death of her daughter, Cassidy, Carrie is now seemingly lifeless on their bedroom floor while her husband works to save her.
Do compressions first, okay? Just keep doing compression.
Waco is a great city. It's very religious. You can't walk a block without seeing a church.
It's small enough that most people are just a degree or two away from knowing everybody else.
Hewitt, Texas is a suburb of Waco. Back then, maybe 12,000 people. They have their own city, government, police.
And when Carrie and Matt moved in, they quickly became part of the community.
But in early April 2006, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, a chaotic scene is unfolding inside this house. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife, Carrie, unresponsive in their bedroom.
And what's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold.
Is she conscious?
No, she's not.
Breathing?
No, she's not breathing at all, no pulse or anything.
I put my head to her chest and didn't see or feel her chest rising, no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing.
Okay, listen carefully. I need you to get her laying flat on her back on the ground and remove any pillows, okay?
Okay, put her on the floor.
Correct.
Put her on the bed now. Put her on.
All right, she needs to be on the floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
The 911 operator tells Matt to do CPR, to put Carrie on the floor and start CPR.
Do that and tell me when you're done.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Oh, my. Okay, hold on.
I did not want the EMTs to come in and see her naked. And so I put her clothes on her, for her. And as I'm taking her off the bed, fluid comes out of her mouth onto the floor, and it smells of alcohol.
You're going to push down firmly 2 inches with only your lower hand touching her chest. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times.
400?
400 times is the latest we've been instructed to do, okay?
400.
Twice per second.
Rest it off?
After the 400. You're going to,
400 up?
correct. It's going to be about twice per second. It'll take you about 3.5 minutes to do it, okay? So start right now. I'll tell you when to stop. All right.
While on the phone, Matt asks the 911 operator to call Carrie's parents because he says his daughters are also in the house.
I need to get a hold of her parents. They live in town, and I want them to come over and be with the kids.
Get somebody else started on this, okay?
Thank you.
We received a phone call from the 911 operator telling us that we needed to get over to my daughter's house, that there had been an accident. We needed to get over there immediately.
Oh, she's got foam or something coming out of her nose. Okay, someone's at the front door. I gotta go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
My name is Michael Irvin. I was a patrol officer with the city of Hewitt, and at that time I had only had about 6 months of actual law enforcement experience. I was the first officer to respond to the house. There was actually an EMT that met me in the front yard. Matt Baker actually met us outside and then walked us in, and he took us straight into the bedroom where his wife was at.
The EMTs go in and they find Carrie on the floor. She's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of underpants.
And they come in, and I step away and let them start working.
There was a glass there that was actually still cold, if I remember correctly, which led into his account of what happened that night.
It'd been a typical Friday night that Matt says started with him and Carrie sharing a drink before heading to the local Y.
And we had a wine cooler that I'd purchased, and so she drank one, I drank one. We take our oldest daughter to swim practice that night. On the way, my wife started saying her stomach was hurting her. She just felt nauseated, wasn't feeling very good.
After the family returns home, Matt says Carrie still wasn't feeling well, and after taking a bath, she heads to bed while he starts the bedtime rituals with her daughters.
It's a Friday night, so they could stay up later. They could stay up till 10 o'clock watching TV. Came back, laid down with my wife. She's still in bed, half asleep, and she wants another drink. She has a drink, I have one too. She goes to sleep, wakes up at about 11 o'clock and asks me to go get a movie. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. She goes, well, go get this movie for me and gas up because we have a busy day tomorrow.
He left to go get a movie. While he was gone, he came back and he discovered that he couldn't get back in.
Walk to the bedroom door and it's closed. And I try the knob and it's locked. And I knock on it and call her name, Carrie, Carrie, and there's no response.
Matt says he finds a small screwdriver to try to open the door.
So I pop the lock and open the door and find her in bed. And it was very eerily similar to walking in the room when I found Cassidy.
As EMTs in the Baker residence work on Carrie, police take note of those wine coolers on the bedside table and something else.
There was this bottle of Unistom that it was almost empty.
She had been taking sleeping pills to go to sleep since Cassidy passed away and started taking more and more of them. And we had discussions that you've got to stop doing this. This is too many. This can be dangerous.
We ran out of the car, and as I started running up to the front of the house, an EMT person stood in front of me and grabbed me and told me that my daughter was dead. I just kept saying, there's no way.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't set right. For me, it all pointed back to that note.
A frenzied scene has been unfolding in the middle of the night at the Baker's home. Matt Baker's wife is dead, and there's a note.
On the bedside table, there's a suicide note.
That was the first time that the word suicide entered my mind. I had no idea at that moment what had happened.
In the note, there was reference to Cassidy. Matt explained to me that Cassidy was their daughter. And it's a very difficult time for Carrie because of the anniversary of Cassidy passing away. The first person I remember showing up after me, I explained all the things that Matt had showed me, and I took a step back.
In Texas, in small counties where they don't have medical examiners, the justices of the peace decide what happens when there's an unexplained or a sudden death.
I do remember that phone call. It was Judge Martin.
They told him they had a suicide note and they had alcohol and that they had pills. And Billy Martin did not order an autopsy.
It was classified as a suicide based on the preliminary investigation and what they saw at the scene.
Police involvement at that point is done.
Carrie Baker's family and her church community are shocked by her suicide.
I hurt for her. I hurt that someone hurt enough that they made that choice.
We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and get through this. This is...
Less than 1 week after Carrie's funeral, Pastor Matt Baker is back at the pulpit here at Crossroads Baptist delivering the Easter sermon. He tells his congregation that just like Jesus, Carrie has risen up to heaven.
The was always the desire in her to be with a daughter that was in heaven now. And she did voice that several times, that Cassidy needed her, she needed Cassidy.
This was my wife's Bible that she carried for years.
Matt had given her a Bible years earlier, and she started writing her feelings in the margins.
She says, I want to go with Cassidy. She could never let go of Cassidy. It was such a strong hold on her.
The week Carrie died, she had a session with her grief counselor and also saw a doctor who prescribed her medication.
The next day she ripped up the prescription. She wouldn't fill it.
After finding out Carrie died, I had talked to my sister Kay. I just kept saying there's no way.
Carrie would never take her own life.
And then that's when she told me about a visit she got from Joanne.
Joanne Bristol is Carrie's grief counselor and also friends with Carrie's aunt, Kay Bailey.
She had had a session with Carrie earlier that week. She had shared with me what Carrie had shared with her, that Carrie found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase.
Joanne Bristol also shared that detail and others with police in the days following Carrie's death.
My sister Kay and I, we all started talking, not around Linda. We all were sitting there going, what are we going to do? Because we knew so much about Matt.
We worked at a church camp together. Matt, I believe, had been written up at that particular camp for harassing girls that I went to school with.
There was also an alleged incident from his college days involving a fellow student.
I was afraid of him. I was angry with him. He took away virtually my young adulthood.
Laura Wilson filed a complaint against Matt, saying he sexually assaulted her.
We were both student trainers for the athletic department. He was a sophomore trainer and I was a freshman trainer.
She was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt came in and offered to help.
He came up behind me and he pinned my arms behind my back and started trying to kiss me. I kept telling him to stop. He came up from behind me, picked me up, sat me on his lap, and he began running his hand between my legs. I was struggling to get away. He didn't stop with the kiss. He didn't stop with the touching until he was ready to stop. Now I'm left with myself, violated, in shock, not knowing what to do.
All I can tell you is when she left the facility, was in tears, but nothing that I did.
After the assault happened, his words to me were, "I never meant to hurt you."
At the time, Laura told a college staffer about the alleged assault. Matt was not disciplined.
I dropped out, dealt with recurring nightmares, dealt with trust issues in relationships. It derailed my life for many, many years. I became a different person.
She eventually filed a report with police years later. They began looking into the allegations, but stopped once they realized the statute of limitations had passed. Matt Baker denies assaulting Laura or harassing any female campers.
Things have been said that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, but I can't say this, I never accosted anybody.
Throughout Matt and Carrie's marriage, rumors of alleged inappropriate sexual behavior would continue to follow the preacher, but his wife stood by him.
She loved Matt. When Carrie heard allegations that Matt had been inappropriate with young women, she was his staunchest defender. She told one young woman, when you marry a Baptist preacher, women are going to come forward and make false allegations, and you have to protect them. Carrie believed him, and we believed Carrie. She was telling us the truth, as she knew it. I think there's a presumption with a man of God that they have a certain character and a certain ethical base, and we believe that.
Linda's sisters had hoped that by talking to her about the various past allegations against Matt, she might start to see him in a different light. But she didn't. She still had faith in her son-in-law.
My sisters came over, and I told them, let's just grieve and let this go.
But the family wouldn't let it go.
It started with the cell phone records.
And Linda soon makes a startling discovery.
Something wasn't right.
Over the years, since her daughter Cassidy's death, Carrie Baker was in and out of counseling, dealing with her grief, especially around the time of year when Cassidy died.
Anytime you got close to the anniversary of the death of Cassidy or her birthday or holidays, there was definitely a deep sadness.
But there was more going on that year. There was the fact that she was uncertain about her relationship with Matt. She sensed that something was very wrong. After Carrie's death, Linda's sisters sat down with Linda and said, we don't believe that Carrie committed suicide.
While Linda may have still been processing her daughter's loss, her family's emotions had quickly turned to suspicion.
I remember Nancy saying, Linda, have you ever considered that perhaps Carrie didn't take her life? I remember stammering and saying, oh, what are you talking about? Murder?
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
The family decides to tell Linda what they say they learned from Carrie's therapist.
Carrie had shared with her that she'd found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase, and she was afraid that Matt might possibly try to kill her.
She said, I think Matt's trying to kill me. And then she started laughing and she said, oh no, Matt would never do that.
But at the same time, I thought, this would make more sense because I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
I think if truly Carrie went and said that and was fearful for her life, the counselor should have done more and didn't. Looking back, I think it was a scream. The first scream in a series of screams that took place that week of, I'm hurting more than you think I am.
Murder, I mean, that's just not something that I could wrap my head around. I needed time to think, to process. This was too difficult for me to be able to discuss.
But then shortly after Carrie's death, Linda says she began to notice Matt was keeping her granddaughters away from her. No more babysitting, no more invitations to school events.
At that point, she started to feel a little different. What was going on here and why was this happening?
Linda remembers Matt and Carrie's cell phones were part of her family plan, so she decides to have a look at the phone bill.
The first really odd thing she noticed was that Matt had continued to call Carrie's cell phone weeks after Carrie had died. It made no sense at all, and then it all started to click. Matt's giving Carrie's phone to someone.
And I think you said calling all angels, but we all went over to your house. You said, we need to get together and talk.
At that point, Linda started to think that maybe her sisters were right, and maybe they really did need to look into this.
It started with the cell phone.
And I immediately figured out it was Vanessa Bowles. Vanessa Bowles was the daughter of the music minister at Crossroads Church, where Matt was the preacher.
The relationship really started between my wife and her. They became friends.
Vanessa had a little girl that reminded Carrie of the baby she had lost.
There were only 3 young families in the church that had small children, so we naturally just kind of congregated together because we had similar interests. We were friends.
Vanessa would later describe in a recorded interview how she says the friendship evolved.
So I just got divorced, and it was nice to have someone to talk to, who was in the pastoral position.
And she gives her explanation of why she has Carrie's phone.
We were starting to talk and become friends. Then I said, don't call my cell because my mom pays for my meds and I don't want to run over during the day. I've done that many times before. And he was like, well, I still have Carrie's phone, so I can give that to you.
Maybe Matt was simply seeking comfort in the friendship of a fellow churchgoer. But for Linda, those phone bills had set off alarm bells.
Linda went to the Hewitt Police Department. She showed them the phone bills, but they weren't interested. This was a done case. It was over as far as they were concerned.
That's when Linda said, I need my angels over here.
I would email them. I would go, good morning, angels.
She would always tell us, you need to do this. And
here's your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
The assignments Linda gave out involved going through the garbage.
And Charlie was doing some digging right alongside her angels as well. She researched whether overdosing on a sleep aid could have really killed Carrie. And she questioned Matt about those alleged crushed pills.
I talked to Matt about the crushed pills.
My wife said she found him in my briefcase when she was looking for a pen. She said, well, did a kid where you work put him in your bag?
Matt claims that, unknown to him, some kids at work may have been spitting out pills into his briefcase.
But that seemed odd because the pills didn't look like they'd been spit out. What he said couldn't have happened.
And so Kay called Judge Billy Martin to find out why he had ruled Carrie's death a suicide.
I had talked to him about the suicide note, and he mentioned it being signed, and I said it was not. And he goes, well, you need to talk to the police. I said, we've already done this, and we just want somebody to investigate it more.
And it was about that time where Matt's story no longer made sense. There were inconsistencies, outright lies, and we needed more answers.
So following the family's urging, police bring Pastor Matt Baker in for questioning.
Well, I just want to sit and talk to him.
Questions needed to be asked, and questions needed to be answered.
"31-year-old Carrie Baker has been found dead in her home. It was deemed a suicide by police, but her family began investigating on their own, and they urged police to question her husband, preacher Matt Baker.
I just want to sit and talk to him, I just want to talk about what happened that night. Absolutely. That way we can clear all this up, because I'm sure you know what I'm getting at, okay, as far as, Linda, you know what I'm saying?
It was a very odd week. But not behavior that would have raised red flags.
Right.
If that makes sense. It was one of those deals that I knew she was depressed.
The conversation continues, with Matt sharing his own view on what he believes might have happened.
I left about 11 or so. I wasn't gone maybe 40 minutes.
You left the house and went down to the gas station?
I wasn't even gone long at all.
Okay.
And that was a strange thing about it is I question where she would have taken the medicine. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think the medicine is what killed her. I think she threw up into her mouth but was knocked out enough and choked on it. So no, I don't know if that's just me trying to put stuff together to make it, I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, that's all I just wanted to sit and holler at you about. One last thing, to kind of quell everything. If I asked you to take a polygraph test, would you be willing to do so?
Okay.
Matt eventually passes a polygraph arranged by his attorney. Upset that police continue to consider Carrie's death a suicide, Linda pulls together a team of her own.
Linda ended up making an appointment to talk to a former federal prosecutor.
Now in private practice, Bill Johnston had been a federal prosecutor in Waco, Texas.
The Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas goes up in flames.
11 of the survivors now face murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the killing of 4 federal agents.
And in 1993, he was part of the team prosecuting the 11 surviving Branch Davidians.
Those agents did not die in vain. Mrs. Doolin came to me and she said, "I've heard maybe you can help me."
She explained to Bill that she doesn't believe her daughter took her own life, so she'd been working on Carrie's case with her angels.
What Charlie's Angels were bringing to us was invaluable. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. They brought a series of stories about Matt's conduct at different points in his life.
Bill pulled together his own posse. He brought together retired lawmen to take over this investigation.
I called them my guys, and they became as invested in this case as if they were fighting for their own child.
The biggest thing was to get the body exhumed, get an actual autopsy, and find out what had actually happened to Carrie Baker, how she'd actually died.
We started unraveling this thing bit by bit by bit.
Matt Coffon is a member of the legendary Texas Rangers. He joins the team and reviews the evidence on the case.
There are red flag after red flag that something was not right. It was so compelling that I could not automatically agree with the Hewitt police investigation. So I thought, okay, let's kind of break it down.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
These are photographs. As you can tell, there's just not much to them. There were so many things early on in this investigation that just did not match. And part of it was Matt Baker's explanation of his timeline.
He says he left and then he came back, and it was such a short time that she couldn't have died within that period.
That was the theory that we were operating on. His timetable did not really match up. This is an overall view of Hewitt, Texas, and it's not large.
And these locations are very close to each other.
Minutes apart, especially that time of night.
The team was also troubled by Carrie's suicide note, which Officer Michael Irving says was pointed out by Matt.
He just said, there's a suicide note, suicide note, suicide note. So he did direct me straight to the note.
The so-called suicide note was typed.
It's not signed, and that should be a red flag to any investigator. Let's take this a little bit further. It says, tell my mom and dad that I love them too. In this case, two is T-O, not comma, T-O-O.
She was a teacher. She could spell.
Yes.
Something didn't set right. And for me, it all pointed back to that note. That suicide note. I didn't speak up. At that time, I'd been a police officer for 6 months. If I could go and turn back time, there are a lot of things I would have done differently.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done. And so at this point, we decided that we needed to have tissue samples from Carrie's body, so we wanted to have that body exhumed.
At the time of the Hewitt police investigation, they concluded Carrie had died by suicide of over-the-counter sleep medication.
One of the tasks that Linda took on for herself was investigating Unisom. She found that it would have taken a great deal to have caused Carrie's death, and that she wouldn't have died quickly.
We came up with clues that made us believe that perhaps there were prescription medications given to her without her knowledge.
Nearly 4 months after Carrie's death, the Texas Rangers, in conjunction with Hewitt Police, are able to get Judge Martin to sign an order allowing for the exhumation of Carrie's body.
As we gathered information from various sources, determined we need to go that route.
By this time, we were working pretty closely with a detective at the Hewitt Police Department.
It was critical that they had an autopsy.
We had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we needed some scientific evidence. It's something that a prosecutor can hold in their hands and say, okay, now we may have something here.
What else would the Charlie's Angels of Waco and their investigative team learn?
A photograph was found on Matt Baker's computer. He tried to delete it.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
Was Carrie's death a terrible tragedy or something much more sinister?
A manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead. Her death originally ruled a suicide. But is that how the mother of two really died?
Maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger.
But you also discover in that Bible, Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way.
You don't quickly dress a dead body.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
I'm gonna tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Sometimes faith can be used to manipulate and to control people.
Preachers, the good ones are great. The bad ones have the most power of anybody.
Here they were, the police, in the home of a Baptist minister with a suicide note and sleeping pills and a bottle of alcohol. Well, the police at that point aren't thinking murder. They're thinking that Carrie committed suicide.
Texas pastor Matt Baker had lost a young daughter years earlier. He now appears to be facing yet another tragedy, the suicide of his wife, Carrie. But her family isn't buying it.
I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
We will fight for the truth.
Could Carrie have been murdered? The Hewitt police, now collaborating with Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon, who's been working with Carrie's family, obtained an order to exhume Carrie's body. And the autopsy results are now in.
In her muscle tissue, there was a presence of Ambien. And that was huge, huge.
And at the time of her death, she didn't have a prescription for Ambien.
No.
The autopsy now lists Carrie's manner of death as undetermined.
Now you're in undetermined land. Now you're in a mystery. Now let's solve the mystery.
Bill Johnston and his team continue to dig, now taking a closer look at those few crime scene photos. What's this?
This is a picture of Carrie's arm. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the beginning of lividity, the purplish color from the pooling of the blood. You know, when the heart pumps, it pumps through the veins and the arteries. When the heart stops, everything settles to its lowest point. It's gravity. We have lividity set in the body, and that takes time. And this was a problem with Bill Johnston and his team.
And so we found the person who wrote the book on crime scene reconstruction, Tom Bevel.
The first responders from the medical field are saying that lividity either was setting in or set, which in that time frame, that's a problem.
So this is their home right there, right?
Yeah, this is their home. So if he leaves his house at 11, 45 to 55 minutes later, lividity could not have been set in as it was in the photographs, all right?
Cawthon and the team believe that Carrie was likely dead before Matt Baker left his home. So if Carrie's suicide was a homicide, how was she killed? The photograph showed something more.
In one of the photographs, there is a small abrasion that is to the bridge of her nose.
We surmised that this was very likely done using a throw pillow off of a couch. It was kind of a coarse material that very likely could have caused an abrasion.
Indicating that maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
That's right.
The abrasion on Carrie's nose, it's not noted in the autopsy, but the presence of the generic form of Ambien is. So Bill Johnston wants to look into Matt's digital trail. He sues Matt for wrongful death and obtains access to his computer records.
A month before Carrie's death, they discovered Matt was on the computer searching for the term overdose by sleeping pills.
I did search that. I did research to see, can you overdose? Is that even a possibility that I need to worry about? My wife overdosing on sleeping pills.
As they continued to go through the computer, they found where he tried to buy Ambien, had moved it into a cart to purchase it.
And that bit of forensics in the computers now hard linked into the toxicology forensics. Our theory became, the Ambien in the wine cooler, he got her sleepy with that so he could later suffocate her. That was our theory.
And remember those writings in Carrie's Bible about Cassidy? Well, those were written years earlier. But there was a recent troubling entry dated just 5 days before Carrie's death, which says, I feel like I have so much worry. Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm. I am not sure what is going on with Matt. What does that indicate?
It's ominous. It's almost like she is afraid of him.
Looking back on it, they were predictive.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger, and she didn't realize that at that point that he was involved with somebody else.
During this investigation, we got a clue from a woman who worked in a jewelry store and said within a couple of weeks after Carrie's death, Matt Baker comes into the jewelry store with a woman, and they're looking at engagement rings.
No, we were not. One of our rules for our kids was when they turn 6 years old, they can get earrings. And so we began looking for jewelry, earrings.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
This is Vanessa Bulls. She was the other woman. Now, this is a photograph that we found on his computer in trash.
We knew there was going to be a birthday party, and we took a picture of all the girls and Matt and Vanessa.
It wasn't long after Carrie's death when people came over, they didn't see any pictures of Carrie at all. But there was a picture of Vanessa with the girls. 2 of Carrie and Matt's friends came to help with the party, and one of them stayed overnight, and she saw Matt sitting on the couch with Vanessa's head on his lap.
To Carrie's family, it was clear that a romantic relationship had developed between Matt and Vanessa. 4 months after Carrie's death, police believe Vanessa Bulls just might be the key to solving this case. So they bring her to the Hewitt Police Station for questioning.
It's just scary.
I know. Sorry to keep you waiting. Like I said, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, Carrie.
Okay.
This doesn't mean that you're okay?
I'm sorry, this is just scary.
I know.
4 months after Carrie's death, Vanessa Bulls, the woman who appears to have become romantically involved with Matt Baker, is now sitting at the police station, answering questions about how that relationship unfolded.
Every once in a while, he started calling just to chat, just kind of asking about my divorce and, kind of saying how, like, God would work everything out.
How long was that it took it to progress to him calling a couple times a day?
I want to say a couple of weeks. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice to have someone who, had 2 daughters and would possibly, be the dad to my child.
Sure.
Having an affair that predated the killing, that would be big evidence.
Did you ever meet him romantically?
No.
Never? Okay.
After after, yes.
After
his wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I didn't think there was anything wrong.
2020 obtained emails never before broadcast that show Carrie and Matt's relationship unraveling in the weeks before Carrie's death, at the same time as Matt and Vanessa's phone calls start to heat up.
She sensed that something was very wrong.
In one of those emails, Matt blames Carrie for Cassidy's death, writing you wanted her to be pain-free, and then telling her your prayer was the one that was answered.
That made her angry, and she was going to leave him. I suggested they get counseling.
Back in that police interview, Vanessa, who at this point had broken things off with Matt, seems open to believing he could have murdered Carrie.
Do you think that he had anything to do with her death?
I think anything's possible now.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead in her home. Her death, originally ruled a suicide. But now, nearly a year and a half later, a judge has set a hearing to try to determine if that is how the mother of two really died.
A formal inquest into Carrie's death was held, but in the end, the justice of the peace, who initially declared it a suicide, made the same determination that the autopsy had made a year earlier.
That Carrie Lynn Baker's manner and cause of death shall be recorded as undetermined.
So what do you do?
And at some point, we have to do what we think is right. And in this case, it was to get an arrest warrant for Matt Baker.
Even though it wasn't ruled a homicide, nearly a year and a half after Carrie's death, Matt Baker is arrested for her murder.
Matt Baker is accused of drugging his wife Carrie with sleeping pills and then suffocating her with a pillow.
There's no way that he could take a life. And I know my sons, and I just don't believe he could do that.
And we have breaking news for you now from the McLennan County Jail.
Matt Baker could be released any time now. His $200,000 bond has been paid in cash.
My best decision was to move away from there and to move back here to my hometown, where I felt support and felt loved.
And it's in Kerrville, about 200 miles from Hewitt, that our cameras catch up with Matt and his daughters.
This is a little bit of everything. They have a cafe where they take flowers and they crush them up and pretend it's chicken noodle soup. Don't be embarrassed.
2020 gets a glimpse of life with their father.
Favorite thing to do is play with my dad.
After losing their mother.
Each have their own,
Mine, hers.
you know, and they separate pants from shirts.
I pick mine and then he picks hers.
But I have to okay hers.
Yes.
Why?
Because she likes spaghetti straps.
But I don't wear them to school. I'm not allowed.
And during this last year, he was a single parent, working and taking care of these girls. They emotionally attached to their dad very strongly, the younger one especially.
This is my favorite toy because it used to be my dad's when he was a little kid.
Once Matt was released, he went on kind of a press tour.
He tried to tell the world his side of the story.
Would Matt Baker have the nerve to actually interview for and take, do a photo shoot with Texas Monthly? Yes, he would.
Pretty much anybody who wanted to talk with him, Matt Baker had an open door.
Tonight on 2020, was it suicide or murder?
The story goes national, and Matt Baker sits down with 2020 for an interview. He proclaims his innocence and denies he had an affair with Vanessa Bowles.
It was a friend, it was a very good friend, but there's nothing there now. I don't believe in adultery, I don't believe in divorce.
The problem was that for him was that he changed his story a little bit every time he gave one.
Matt tells 2020 that it was the police who found that suicide note.
One of the police officers found it and handed it to me, and I held it in my hands for a brief moment, and I looked at the first line, and I handed it back and said, I can't read it right now.
But listen as Matt refers to that suicide note in his 911 call.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, I'm sorry, basically.
There's no way I could ever have hurt my wife. I loved her. She's the mother of my children, and I miss her. and I did not hurt my wife.
We felt validated with the arrest, but I'm going to tell you right now, all the arrests in the world mean nothing without a good prosecution.
The Texas Rangers made an arrest on the case, and the case was then transferred to our office. And I believed that Matt had killed Carrie, but I didn't feel like that we had the proof to take it to a trial and get a conviction.
If you get an acquittal, it's over.
6 months after Matt Baker's arrest, the murder charge is dismissed after prosecutors failed to indict him.
It was frustrating, but I mean, we knew it would take time and we weren't going to stop.
People started running around town with bumper stickers that said "Justice for Carrie." Love trumps evil was underneath it.
We had truth on our side. We had God on our side.
We had Bill Johnston, and we were going to continue civilly.
But his story was not adding up anymore.
You wouldn't have left those two girls there if you didn't think it was safe.
And would Matt's account of what he says he did when he found Carrie check out?
He's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
When the criminal case was stalled and it wasn't going forward, Bill Johnston filed a wrongful death case, and that allowed him to subpoena Matt Baker for a deposition.
It's the lower left of the...
2.5 years after the death of his wife, Matt Baker is on the hot seat, answering questions under oath about the night she died.
About 10:45-ish, a little before 11, she asked me if I could run a couple of errands.
Now, had she sort of refreshed herself and gotten awake and got forward thinking by that time?
It was still kind of that half awake, just talking, but still kind of real drowsy.
I'm conjecturing that it went through his mind that maybe she already took all the sleeping pills before he left.
Was she aware enough that you could observe that she could handle if the kids needed her, for instance?
I felt that she probably could.
She had to be fine, or else she was incapacitated and he was a bad father and he just left his girls with an incapacitated person. Which one is it, Matt? So he chose the high road, that yes, Carrie was fine. So if Carrie's fine, she's not getting ready to die.
Bill was able to ask him question after question after question and get answers from him that were very helpful.
While you have the phone pressed against your shoulder, you put on her panties first, is that correct?
I believe that's right.
And then what did you do?
And I put on her shirt.
Okay, and she's on the bed at this time?
Correct.
But Matt had told police a different version of how he dressed Carrie that night.
So I put the panties on her in the bed as I was getting her out, and then when she was on the floor, I put her shirt on.
The clothing, it appears consistent, especially her panties, as to how you would typically find if they were put on by the individual, not somebody else, with a lady who is not able to assist.
If he would lie about dressing her, why? And he wanted to explain their body was cold by saying she was nude on top of the bed, as if she would have aired out, cooled off.
Just a stick figure put where she came to rest once you moved. How difficult was that to move her?
I guess at the time you don't even think about it. You just do what you have to do.
We wanted to know if Matt's story holds up, so we asked Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon to put it to the test with a dummy roughly the same weight as Carrie's at the time of her death.
He would have had to reposition the body. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
How much time would he have had to do this between the call to 911 and the chest compressions?
About 2 minutes.
To dress her, put her body on the floor, all while on the phone with 911. We're going to see if you can do this. I'm going to put a stopwatch to it, and here we go.
And you're doing it as fast as you can.
Well, I'm doing it the best I can. And I feel the phone about to fall.
We're at 48 seconds now. We're about a minute 20.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking to the 911 operator.
That's 1 minute 57 seconds. And then
just to get her dressed. That doesn't include the removing from the bed and the chest compressions.
And I know how to do CPR. Oh, you do?
In listening to the 911 call, it sounded phony.
Do I need to go unlock the front door?
I'll let you know when they start getting close, okay?
Okay.
I think he'd give himself an Oscar, and I'd give him a Rotten Tomato.
Just keep doing compression.
I would not have known at the time when I got there that he had been doing CPR.
You're still doing compressions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
he did not sound winded on the phone.
No, not at all. He didn't have to do chest compressions because she was already dead. He killed her, I think, before he left to go run alibi errands.
Despite Matt's inconsistencies, prosecutors feel they need more, so they bring in a new detective to help with the investigation.
My name is Abden Rodriguez, and in 2009, I was a criminal investigator for the McLennan County District Attorney's Office.
I hear they call you the human lie detector?
I guess because of some of the confessions that I was able to get.
Abdon is asked to review the case and find evidence that would help indict Matt Baker.
I wanted to look at the interviews that had been done. There was a lot of deception, you know, and I could see how, especially Vanessa was doing it.
How many times a week would you talk, you think, prior to her death? Once every day for a couple hours, and maybe midday, or?
Sometimes a couple times a day.
As you can see, she's got her arms crossed and her legs crossed. That's a big red flag to me.
When she passed away that week, how were the conversations? Were they kind of the same way they were before?
They were really the same.
And I told him, and I said, look, the whole key to this case is going to be Vanessa Booth. She's pretty and very smooth and friendly, but at the same time, you know she's a liar.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
After interviewing Vanessa, Abdon decides to subpoena her to testify in front of a grand jury.
I said, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to listen to your testimony. And I said, and as soon as you lie, I'm going to file charges on you.
When they brought Vanessa Bowles in for the grand jury, that was kind of a last-ditch effort.
So we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
As she and I were walking down the hall, she whispered to me, I'm going to tell y'all everything.
Behind closed doors, Vanessa Bull's grand jury testimony is the last step in getting Matt Baker indicted.
A former preacher charged with the murder of his wife.
Finally, Vanessa's testimony is the smoking gun.
Yes, it was. It was. She had everything we needed.
The civil case was dropped at that point in order to let the criminal case continue.
Matt Baker is charged with first-degree murder, accused of drugging and suffocating his wife, Carrie, and making it look like a suicide. He pleads not guilty. Now, 4 years after his wife's death, Matt Baker is on trial for her murder.
That first day of the trial, the gallery was full.
We have a lot of people here in the gallery today.
True crime author Catherine Casey was in the courtroom every day.
I followed this story from the first time it hit the Texas newspapers. It was just so fascinating that this had unfolded, especially in Waco, in this city that's just dominated by religion.
Prosecutors began poking holes in Matt's story from that night, starting with a 911 call and his claim that he performed CPR on Carrie.
We're going to go ahead and do compressions. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times. 400? 400 times.
Did any police officers arrive before you?
I was the first one there.
And what did he tell you?
He pulled her off the bed and put her on the floor in order to do CPR.
And what was his demeanor?
Very calm.
Did that strike you as odd?
Yes.
Even as a police officer, I would not be as calm as he was that night.
There was no way that in that period of time he was able to move her, dress her, and was doing CPR while he was having this conversation.
He wasn't sweating. He did not seem to be in any type of physical distress.
The computer expert found incredible evidence regarding searches, regarding suicide, regarding sleeping pills, and regarding Ambien, which became critical.
Can you tell the jury what was extracted from the muscle tissue of Carrie Baker?
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. And then zolpidem, and its common name is Ambien.
We never were able to determine where he got the Ambien from.
But we were able to determine that he was going to these websites and that he had gotten as far as putting Ambien in a cart.
Defense attorney Guy Gray pointed out that there was no evidence that Matt actually ordered Ambien from that website.
They went through the process of looking at it, but it was aborted and no purchase of Ambien was made.
Correct? Yes.
No further question.
Will you state your name for the jury, please?
Joanne Bristol.
Joanne Bristol, Carrie's grief counselor, testified about those comments she says Carrie made about Matt.
She said, "I'm thinking my husband is going to kill me," but she recanted the statement.
How do you analyze that, or what do you think about that?
I felt at that time that I knew this client very well. She had never misled me, and so when she said, "Oh, but I know he wouldn't do that," I believed her.
You didn't advise her to leave the house or move out. You didn't call law enforcement. You took that as the recanting as an accurate or true reflection of what was going on.
From her, yes.
Day 4 of the trial, and it's the prosecution's star witness, who everyone is waiting to hear.
This case was one of those cases where all of the attention is focused on one witness, and that one witness was Vanessa Bowles.
The state calls Vanessa Bowles.
I remember looking at Matt more than looking at the jury. I wanted to see his response, and I think he was stunned.
Raise your right hand.
After years of denying their affair, Vanessa now admits that Matt began to pursue her even before Carrie died.
Please have a seat.
He started asking me things about my divorce and started telling me, "Whoever finds you is going to be a lucky man."
Did he say anything else unusual to you?
He came by and was kind of smiling. He said, "Oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor," and kind of smiled.
Did he say anything else after that?
He said, "Will you really date your pastor? I've had a vasectomy, so I can't get you pregnant. Also, I don't have any STDs." And he also started telling me that because of Carrie's depression, as he stated, their sex life had been lacking.
And at the time, were you buying into what he was telling you about Carrie?
I was buying into everything. He was a complete, and still is, a manipulative liar who took me in my vulnerable state and made me believe everything he said.
What happened then in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
And he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
Feeling guilty about being with her pastor, Vanessa says that Matt tried to reassure her.
I was extremely remorseful. I couldn't believe what just happened. He started saying, "It's okay, don't feel bad, just ask God to forgive you." And he said, in reality, he said, "I don't think God believes that anyone can just be with one person the rest of their lives."
After Carrie's death, Vanessa says Matt wanted more, perhaps even making her the next Mrs. Baker.
At some point, did you and Matt take the girls and go to Kay Jewelers in the mall?
We did. He stated that the girls wanted to go look at wedding rings for me.
Are you telling the jury that he was prepared at this point, a week or two after Carrie's death, to trade in Carrie's wedding set to get you a ring that you wanted?
Correct.
Matt had denied this in interviews, but a salesperson from the jewelry store corroborated Vanessa's account.
She tried on about 4 or 5 rings, asked his opinion. He just would tell her it didn't matter what he liked, it was what she liked, because she would be the one wearing it.
Vanessa then drops a bomb when she says not only did Matt want out of his marriage,
He said that if we ever fell so much in love that he would find a way out of it.
she also knows what happened to Carrie Baker.
I told him, I'm going to tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Vanessa testifies that Matt was openly plotting Carrie's death.
At what point did he start talking about planning her murder?
It was sometime mid-March. He said that, she took sleeping pills every night, so maybe he could make it look like she overdosed on sleeping pills.
Vanessa Bowles talked about how Matt had ruminated about all the different ways he might kill Carrie.
He talked about making it look like she had hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car, maybe doing a drive-by shooting.
What I saw from Vanessa's testimony was a man who was much more evil than even I believed he was.
She testified that Matt planned to kill Carrie with a tainted milkshake and then craft a suicide note.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he tell you that he had in fact tried that?
He did. He sent an email and said she took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead. And so then he said he took a drink and said, oh, well, the ice cream must have been bad. He mentioned that he would leave a note, and he said that he would type it. And I said, that's never going to work. You're going to be caught. And he said, oh, no, she types everything.
Did he say something else about what he believed other people thought about her mental state?
Oh, he said that no one would question it because of how depressed she was.
Vanessa stuns the courtroom when she says Matt Baker told her how he killed his wife.
He had gotten big horse pills. He said he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them. He said he handcuffed her to the bed and started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
What did he say happened next?
He said that he thought she was dead, and he just said she just took one big gasp for air, and he said, oh, and then put the pillow back on her face, except he did this with his hand to be sure that he suffocated her.
He didn't even feel enough remorse when he realized that she was still alive to rethink it. He just wanted to finish the job.
He said he typed out the suicide note, printed it, got her hand, and he said that he ran her hand all around the sides of it and put her fingerprints all over it. He said that he set everything up, locked the door, and left.
What was the reaction in the courtroom to Vanessa's testimony that not only did Matt Baker kill his wife, but that he had been planning it?
He had planning it, and the things that he did, people couldn't believe it. I think the more surprising thing was that they couldn't believe that she's up there telling all this.
So you knew that Friday, April 7th of 2006 was the day that he was going to try it again?
I knew he was going to try it then, yes.
All right. And you didn't report that to anybody?
No.
Vanessa says she had second thoughts about Matt and the cover-up of Carrie's murder.
Not only had I known about this and not done the right thing, in truth, who would believe me? He was a preacher. And so I felt like I was stuck.
She then chose to break it off with him.
I decided that I didn't care what he told me anymore, that we didn't worship the same God. So I called him. I told him, I never want to see you again. And he became irate. He started saying, I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving.
In a move Vanessa believed was meant to intimidate her, she testifies that Matt sent her an MP3 of a song called Dirty Little Secret.
He was talking about the murder plan, and he later referenced it, stating, I need to keep my mouth shut, don't tell anyone, or you'll be just another regret.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Bulls.
The defense pressed Vanessa on why she was now coming clean about everything.
How would we know to believe you, Vanessa?
Because what do I have to gain from this right now? I'm setting things right. I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
It's now up to the jury to determine where Matt needs to be.
Folks, we can't protect her from harm. The only thing now we can do is give her justice. Then turned and pointed to Matt and said to convict this murdering minister and find him guilty for one reason only, because he is guilty.
The indictment says there's got to be facts of drugs and a pillow. And the only way you can get those facts is by believing Vanessa Bulls. And she is just not credible.
I think a lot of people struggled with Vanessa. I mean, she had done horrible things, but I think it really helped her credibility when she was on the stand because she didn't try to fade her own culpability.
I think Vanessa was absolutely the key to the case.
They've reached a unanimous verdict, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
For the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury gets to hear additional testimony.
They came back and had witnesses from his past come and talk to us about things that he had done.
One by one, women testify about sexual misconduct they say they endured from Matt Baker.
He came up from behind me, put his hand on my breast. I pushed him away, told him no. He tried to kiss me, told him no.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
Including Laura Wilson, the student trainer who worked alongside him in college.
He took his hand and began running up my thigh and between my legs.
I think as a jury, to see, what all he's been doing since he was a teenager made us 100% feel like that we had definitely made the right decision.
The jury sentenced Matt Baker to 65 years in prison. And finally, Carrie's mother has a chance to confront him directly.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today?
So what does Matt have to say from behind bars?
Yeah, we asked him to. We gave him a call.
The sentence of the court that you be confined for a term of 65 years. There's some victim impact statements given by the family of the victim. You may proceed.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today? For a little while, okay?
But she did talk to him directly, and he looked down.
Matt, she loved you. And then you took her from us, Matt. You discarded her like she was yesterday's trash. You murdered the mother of your children. But love trumps evil. I don't know why, but I felt pity for him.
I truly believe in my innocence. I believe the jury made a mistake in this.
After his sentencing, 2020 speaks with Matt Baker again, this time in prison, where he finally admits to his affair with Vanessa, but continues to maintain his innocence.
I'm coming clean on the lying about Vanessa. I made a mistake. I'm human. I made a mistake there. I should not have ever got involved in that. I was having a tough spot in my marriage, and I took the chicken way out. But I would never have hurt my wife. I never did. I never laid a hand on her, ever.
Their mother was erased from them.
They need to know she loved them, and she didn't leave them by choice.
A year and a half after Matt's conviction, Linda was given custody of her granddaughters.
It was a long journey for the girls to understand what had actually happened to their mother.
Carrie Baker didn't kill herself. She was murdered.
He was a Baptist pastor, preacher.
He was a predator.
I think he's a dark angel.
That you may fear the Lord your God.
You get to be the hero during daylight and sneak around in the dark and be evil.
What do you make of the fact that now, nearly 20 years after the case, Matt Baker still maintains his innocence?
He's one of those people that can just lie and believe in himself that he's innocent.
The real hero in this is Linda Doolin. She fought for her child.
A mother. A mother's will.
It's strong.
Determination.
There's nothing like it, really.
It touches you.
It does.
Why?
Because I have children. And these are hard things. Linda Doolin is a brave, strong woman. I'll always admire that about her.
We love each other, and we knew Carrie did not take her life, and we weren't going to sit back until somebody would listen to us.
She was an amazing mother, and she would fight for any of us. And I just wanted everybody to know the truth.
Carrie's family is still so heartbroken over their loss, but committed to remembering the joy she brought them all. We should point out tonight that Matt Baker hasn't seen his daughters since he went to prison, but he hopes they'll visit one day.
As for Baker, David, he has exhausted all of his state appeals. For an inside look at tonight's 2020, join me for our brand new podcast, 2020, The After Show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.